Hello, how are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Wales 12, Georgia 13. An extraordinary and historic victory for Georgia. Their first victory away from home against a Tier 1 nation. I was here on commentary duty in Cardiff. I'll be honest, I did not expect that. I thought it would be close, but I didn't see Georgia getting the victory. A huge victory for them, a well-deserved victory, but there needs to be an inquest for Wales. In this video, I'm going to get into all of that. Make sure if you are new here, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and drop a comment down below. I'm expecting there are going to be a lot of Welsh fans who want to have their say on what is next for this team and what is next for Wayne Pivac, the head coach, and of course, a lot of Georgia fans as well who will be jubilant with this victory today. All right, let's get into it. So as I say, Georgia had never beaten a Tier 1 nation away from home. The last time they played a Tier 1 side, it was a victory, but that was in Georgia when they beat Italy. They've never done it away from home. They've played 31 games. They'd lost all 31, but they've come into the Principality Stadium. They've come into Cardiff this afternoon, and they have done a job on Wales. Sensational performance. As I say in the intro, I didn't necessarily see it coming. I thought it would be close. I didn't think it would be a runaway victory for either side, because generally when these two sides meet, it is close. If you look at the last two times that they've played in Wales, I think the last time they played, Wales won 18-0, and the time before that, again, it was kind of like a one-score game. So it's closer than most people would expect, but still I wasn't sure that Georgia could come and do the job that they have just done against Wales. And it was another weird afternoon, in all honesty. It was another game where the Principality was a little bit flat throughout. I thought the same for the Argentina game, and it was another game where Wales once again didn't start well at all. It's the third match in a row where they haven't scored any points inside the opening 20 minutes of the game. Jack Morgan did score just after 20 minutes when they got their two quick-fire tries, but it was another occasion where they had starting games so slowly. And when it was against the All Blacks, you can kind of forgive them for that because they were coming up against such a high-quality side. But here against Georgia, you would have expected them to come out the blocks quicker, but they didn't. In fact, they came out pretty much exactly the same way as they did against Argentina, where within the opening 2 minutes, they gave away a penalty. Georgia kicked the first points of the game. After that point, Wales actually, for the most part, certainly in terms of meaningful possession in a dangerous area of the pitch, dominated the game, but they weren't able to capitalise on that. They took their two tries pretty well, and all of a sudden, myself and James Hook in commentary kind of thought like, okay, they're going to hit their stride now, they're going to go up a few gears and they'll pull away from Georgia. But it just did not happen. So they took those two tries, which they took well, really clever deception at the line out. Peel moved back round to the front. Jack Morgan went through a big hole to score his first international try, and he scored his second international try just 2 minutes later. But apart from that 2-3 minute period of the game, that is pretty much the only thing to write home about from a Welsh perspective. They were lethargic. I don't know what the game plan was. They kicked away a huge amount of ball, and they kicked it away pretty badly as well. Loads of up and unders. You felt like if they just kept it in the hands, if they went through the phases, obviously in the right area of the pitch, I'm not talking about just running it out from their own 22 every time, but if they went through the phases in the right area of the pitch, when they did that, eventually they would be able to break Georgia down. And they just didn't do that. They kept kicking the ball away. There was a moment in the second half where they took a quick line out, and then Alex Cuthbert just puts a kick over the top. It's a little bit too long, easy collected by Georgia, and it was turnover ball. And it was decisions like that that I just don't know what the game plan was. But most concerning of all is this isn't a Wales team that have come up against Georgia and underestimated them, and they've made 15 changes. They made 6 changes, but they still had George North. They had Josh Adams coming back in. Justin Tipuric was the captain. They had Ken Owens, who, by the way, had a really poor game by his standards. He had 2 lineouts that weren't straight. He was a little bit ill-disciplined, gave away sloppy penalties, particularly at one point in the second half when Wales had the ball in the Georgia 22 and he went off his feet to concede the penalty. This is, I think, a really sobering defeat for Wales. And there'll be a lot of Welsh fans who weren't particularly happy with where the squad was going already, but this has to put a spotlight on Wayne Pivac and his position. When you consider the defeat to Italy in the Six Nations, you consider that they haven't won back-to-back matches since this time last year. It was the end of last autumn when they beat Fiji and Australia. Is Wayne Pivac the man to lead Wales into the World Cup? I think they probably give him the World Cup, but I think it is completely fair for there to be serious questions over his future and where this Wales team are going, because they've won a Six Nations on his watch. It wasn't a Grand Slam, but it was during COVID. There were no fans. So many games they had, the opposition got a player sent off. And then after that, they've been riddled by inconsistency, and you just don't really know where this team is heading. So for Wales, there will rightly be a huge amount of criticism, because they frankly were awful today. I think there should have been times where they put the game to bed in terms of they got the lead, they then should have been able to kick on, and they just didn't. Part of that was down to the good work Georgia did. I don't want to take anything away from them, but from a Welsh perspective, it was absolutely shocking. As for Georgia, what a victory, what a moment, what a place to be, what a time to experience it. Historic victory for them. There were some fans sat just behind where we were here, absolutely loving it. There were pockets of them around the stadium that as the game went on, you started to become just a little bit more aware of. You were noticing those Georgian flags more. They were getting into the game. They had hope. And that's what Wales did. They gave Georgia hope in this game. They never got themselves out of sight. They never put them under enough pressure. So many mistakes from Wales that let Georgia off the hook. It gave them field position and it gave them territory. So Georgia, just superb. We always talk about it, don't we, that Georgia, Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, teams like this need more opportunity playing against tier 1 nations, and this is exactly why, because international rugby at the moment is so competitive. Italy beat Australia last week. Georgia have come into Cardiff on a Saturday afternoon, an early lunchtime kickoff, and done the job on them. What a massive victory. Hard to pick out individual players. I will say that I was really impressed with the fullback, Nini Yashvili, who is probably the most well-known of the Georgian players at the moment, plays in the top 14, made more meters, made more offloads than any other player in the top 14 this season. Looked really good again here today. A few moments that Georgia did have, particularly in the first hour of the game where they were struggling to break Wales down, where they were able to break that gain line, in large part was to do with him. He was able to get an offload away or just find a little bit more space. So I was really, really impressed with him. But Georgia came and did probably what you would expect them to do, really. They kept it tight. They were very, very physical. Their scrum, I mean, absolutely demolished Wales at the end of that game. The scrum and the forwards replacements had a big, big say on the outcome of this game. They won a scrum penalty to give them the kick to take the lead, and they then won a scrum penalty with about a minute left on the clock, 30 seconds left on the clock, where what gave them a penalty, they could kick to touch, and then from that line out, they got a free kick, and that was the game done. So massive scrum from Georgia, which we absolutely expect from them. And this can hopefully just give them a platform to keep on building. It is so difficult for teams to break into the upper echelon of international rugby. The reality is it probably won't happen on a consistent basis until they figure out the global calendar. But this is another reminder of why teams like Georgia need time, they need investment, and they need fixtures. Because this was their final, if you like. I don't mean that in a patronising way, but if you look at Georgia's autumn, this was their shot at one of the big boys, and they've come and they've taken it, and they've put a marker in the sand for why they should be given more opportunities. They were absolutely sensational. Wales were utterly pathetic, and should Wayne Pivac go? Should he lead them into the next World Cup? Normally, I think that would be hyperbolic. Normally, I think that would be quite unfair, but I think that is a genuine question. And maybe the answer is yes. Maybe you do give him the time to lead Wales into the next World Cup. But as things stand at the moment, that is a question that is worth answering. Do let me know in the comments down below your view on that, and also just Georgia. Let's give Georgia a bit of love, right? They deserve it. They were sensational. Remember, if you're new here, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Nice one.